Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on the Wreath network on TryHackMe. Today we're going to be taking a look at task 11, pivoting with SSH tunneling and port forwarding. Now, one thing to note before we go into this, I did install Google Chrome just because I don't want to have the same browser that I'm answering questions on for TryHackMe also be the browser that I'm using to access things within the Wreath network, just because I don't want to go and set up the custom forwarding or networking rules, specifically with routing for that. What I've done is I've installed Google Chrome. I'm going to put instructions for that in the link just down in the video description below. It's just a TechMint article. Very easy. You download the .dev file and then just need to install it. And then I just have it running right over here. Nice and easy. Let me pull that up. There we go. And you can see that even then I've just got the Foxy proxy set back up. It looks a little different, but it's the same thing, so maybe. There we go. It's it looks like it doesn't really like the my sizing on that, but that's fine. That being said, let's go ahead and dive right into task 11, pivoting with SSH tunneling and port forwarding. The first tool we'll be looking at is none other than the bog standard SSH client with an open SSH server. Using these simple tools, it's possible to create both forward and reverse connections to make SSH tunnels, allowing us to forward ports and or create proxies. Let's talk about forward connections. So forward connections, creating a forward or a local SSH tunnel can be done from our attacking box when we have SSH access to the target, which we conveniently do. As such, this technique is much more commonly used against Unix hosts, just typically because Linux servers will have SSH installed. You can have that installed on Windows servers, however, it's far less common. Linux servers in particular commonly have SSH active and open. That said, Microsoft relatively recently brought out their own implementation of the OpenSSH server native to Windows, so this technique may begin to get more popular in this regard if this feature were to gain more traction. Most of the time, when you are gaining external access to a network, it is going to be that Linux server anyways, so it's going to be just Unix for the most part. There are two ways to create a forward SSH tunnel using the SSH client: port forwarding and creating a proxy. Port forwarding is accomplished with the -L switch, which creates a link to a local port. For example, if we had SSH access to 10.10.10.5 and there's a web server running on 10.10.10.10, we could use this command to create a link to the server on 10.10.10.10. So we do SSH TAC L for that local port. Then we do 8000. That's going to be the port that we're actually going to contact it on. And then we have the actual host that it is running on, so 10.10.10.10. And then we have the actual port of the website. And then we use our user at the host that we do have access to. Again, we're just routing our traffic through this, and then -FN, or lowercase f, capital N. I believe that's just so that we don't have, we background this right away, and we don't allow data. It's a one-way connection, other than the port forwarding. We could then have access the website on 10.10.10.10 through 10.10.10.5 by navigating to port 8000 on our own attacking machine. For example, by entering localhost 8000 into a web browser. Using this technique, we effectively have created a tunnel between port 80 on this server that we're targeting and port 8000 on our own box. If this is a little bit difficult to wrap your head around, I recommend reading through this a couple times. This getting used to port forwarding can be a bit rough at the start. Just think of it as you're punching through one box to go to another. Note that it's good practice to use a high port out of the way for the local connection. This means that low ports are still open for their correct use. So for example, if we wanted to start our own web server to serve an exploit to a target, something that's really common. And that also means that we do not need to use sudo to create the connection. The -lowercase f, capital N, combined switch does two things. So -lowercase f backgrounds the shell immediately so that we have our own terminal back, and capital N tells SSH that it doesn't need to execute any commands, only set up the connection. There we go. So what I had mentioned earlier, just setting that up, and then it just runs in the background so that we have that connection and we can use it. Proxies are made using the -D switch. For example, -D 1337. This will open up port 1337 in your attacking box as a proxy to send data through into the protected network. This is useful when combined with a tool such as proxy chains. An example of this command would be SSH -D 1337, and then we do our normal SSH user at the IP. In this case, it's 10.10.10.5 -f N. This again uses the -f N, switches to background the shell, and make sure that it doesn't execute any commands. The choice of port 1337 is completely arbitrary. All that matters is that the port is available and correctly set up in your proxy chains or equivalent configuration file. Having this proxy set up would allow us to route all of our traffic through into the target network. Let's talk about reverse connections. Reverse connections are very possible with the SSH client, and indeed may be preferable if you have a shell on the compromised server, but not SSH access. They are, however, riskier, as you inherently must access your attacking machine from the target, be it by using credentials or preferably a key-based system. So with that, you ideally want to use a key-based system because you don't want to have those credentials potentially get caught in anything, be it a HIDS agent or something like that that's running on the machine. A key-based system, you can tell that key that it's no longer authorized and they can't do anything about it. Before we can make a reverse connection safely, there are a few steps we need to take. First, generate a new set of SSH keys and store them somewhere safe. So if we want to do, we would first do the command SSH-keygen, and we can see that it's going through the generation process here. And then we do ls-tac lsa. Looks like we named them reverse for the actual key name. So we have our reverse, which is the private key, and then reverse.pub, which is the public key. Note that in a previous step, we stole the private key, or rather, I guess we're borrowing it for the initial server that we're accessing. So similarly, we're making this new set so that we can get the reverse access. This will create two new files, a private key and a public key. Copy the contents of the public key, the file ending in .pub, and then edit the your .ssh authorized keys file on your own attacking machine. You may need to create a .ssh directory in your home directory and the authorized keys file first if you haven't already done this before. This is great practice. It's not very difficult. You just create that file. It doesn't have anything special about it. You just paste in the contents of the .pub in there. On a new line, type the following line, then paste in the public key. There we go. So we have echo. This account can only be used for port forwarding. So we have no-agent-port forwarding, no-x11 forwarding. So we do have some restrictions set up on there. This makes sure that the key can only be used for port forwarding, disallowing the ability to gain a shell on your attacking machine. You don't really want to get hacked back. Not that most adversaries will do that to you, but you should prevent it in the first place from happening. The final entry in the authorized keys file should look like this. So we have command echo. This account can only be used for port forwarding. It looks like it's cut off just a little bit. So let me read it up over in the side here. So this is just copying that entire thing in. And then you see that we have the contents of pub underneath that. Next, check if the SSH server on your attacking machine is running. And you can do that with sudo systemctl status SSH. I'm going to run that over here. CTL status SSH. And it looks like it is loaded but inactive on my machine. I'm going to start it. And there we go. And if I see the status, now it's running. So that's all up and running. If the service is running, then you should get a response that looks like this with active shown in the message. You might not necessarily have to do this. I'm just showing you guys that for the sake of the demonstration. If the status command indicates that the server is not running, then you can start this SSH service with sudo systemctl start SSH, as I demoed over here. If you want to have this enabled at startup for whatever reason, you can do that with systemctl enable SSH. That just makes it start up with your computer. The only thing left to do is the unthinkable. Transfer the private key to the target box. This is usually an absolute no-no, which is why we generated a throwaway set of SSH keys to be discarded as soon as the engagement is over. This is also a good reason to make sure that your password is not super weak. In the case of this box, I'm using just a default Kali install, so the password is Kali. That's not a strong password. Again, this grants potentially the opportunity for an attacker to get access to your machine, unless you have SSH restricted to only key-based access, which you probably should. Again, make sure that your machine is not the weakest point of the network. With a key transferred, we can then connect back with a reverse port forward using the following command. So this is run on the target machine. So SSH-R, so specifying that we're connecting to a remote port, a remote machine for this. We have our local port on the attacking machine, the target IP that we're going to be logging into, so our attack box here, and then we have the target port that it is going to be. It looks like, and then username at attacking IP, -I keyfile -fn. I think I do have that backwards here. You can see it in the demo down here. So it looks like the local port that we're going to be sending this back to is 8000, and then 80 is going to be the local port that we are granting this access to. So I did have that slightly backwards. You can see that down here below. To put that in the context of our fictional IPs, 10.10.10.10 and 10.10.10.5, it looks like there's a small typo there. If we have a shell on .5 and we want to give our attack box the 20.20 access to the web server on .10, we could use the this command on .5 and we would gain access to that. So we can see we have our target machine right here that we're getting that access to. So this is the port that it is going to be able to be accessed on, and this is the actual port that we want that access to on the remote machine. This is the machine we're logging into, and then -I specifies that we're using a key file, so that private key, and then background and don't allow commands to go through it. This would open up a port to our Kali box, allowing us to access the .10 web server in exactly the same way as with the forward connection we made before. Again, a little bit riskier, but if you don't have that SSH access into your target, I mean, this is one of the options that you have. In newer versions of the SSH client, it's also possible to create a reverse proxy, the equivalent of the -D switch used in local connections. This may not work in older clients, but this command can be used to create a reverse proxy in clients which do support it. So here you can see that we have -R, and then we have the username at attacking machine, and then the key file. So it looks like it's just a lot shorter in that case. This, again, will open up a proxy, allowing us to redirect all of our traffic through localhost port 1337 into the target network. Note, modern Windows comes with an inbuilt SSH client available by default. This allows us to make use of this techniques in Windows systems, even if there is not an SSH server running on the Windows system we're connecting back from. In many ways, this makes the next task covering plink.exe redundant. However, it is still very relevant for older systems. And knowing how to use Plink is really good. That's something that is invaluable. I've had to use this on other machines, and it's just something to have in your repertoire. And before we go on, I'm going to actually stop SSH on my machine because I don't know if we're going to need it. To close any of these connections, type ps-aux and then grep for SSH, and you can see that we have that open right here. It looks like that's cut off just a little bit for the sake of the video. Just so you guys know what that says, it'll be a little bit different on your screen. It does say SSH root at this machine, so it's showing the full reverse connection there. And we can see that what is actually active. Find the process ID, the PID of the connection in the above image. You can see that it's the 105.238. And then finally type sudo kill PID to close the connection. So this is done on your defending machine, that you're killing that connection that came back. If you're connecting to an SSH server from your attacking machine to create a port forward, so you're connecting from your attacking machine to create a port forward, would this be a local port forward or a remote port forward? That is going to be a local port forward because we're on our attacking machine. It's our local port that we're actually getting that access to. And let's see. Which switch combination can be used to background an SSH, port forward, or tunnel? That's dash lowercase f, capital N. And then let's see. It's a good idea to enter our own password on the remote machine to set up a reverse proxy. Aye or nay? You should never do this. Never, ever, ever enter in your password on the remote machine. What command would you use to create a pair of throwaway SSH keys for a reverse connection? That's going to be RSA keygen, I believe. Let me check. SSH dash keygen. There we go. There we go. If you wanted to set up a reverse port forward from port 22 or a remote machine .10 to port 2222 of your local machine, so the .20, it looks like there's a small typo there with those being flipped. Using a key file called id_RSA and backgrounding the shell, what command would you use, assuming your username is Callie? This is going to be SSH-R. Let's see. I believe this should be 2222. And then of a remote machine, 10, 10, 10, 10. And then we want 22 of that machine. Callie at 10, 20, 10, 20. Let's assume that that's correct. Dash ID_RSA. And then dash NF or FN. There we go. So if you didn't catch all that, let me go ahead and copy that over here in the side as well. So just breaking this down again, this is SSH. We're doing remote port forwarding, so dash uppercase R. And then 2222, this is going to be the port that we're sending it to. And then the target machine that we are going to grant access to, so the 10, 10, 10, 10, this is the machine that we're going to be attacking. This is our machine at the start. So us, the attacking machine, the porting the attacking machine, that, or the machine that we're attacking that we actually care about. And then this is our normal SSH login here. And then we're specifying the file that we're using to access our own machine, or the machine that we control in this case. And then we have the backgrounding and no command. What command would you use to set up a forward proxy on port 8000 to user@target.thm, backgrounding the shell? Forward proxy, I believe this should just be SSH-R, I'm guessing. Maybe. Here, let me double check this. I'm going to pull up my notes real quick. There we go. It is the dynamic one. SSH-D 8000. So we're doing a dynamic forward with this. This is just that proxy. User@target.thm -lowercase f, capital N. Again, if this is a little bit confusing, don't be afraid to go through this section a couple times. Port forwarding can be a little bit tricky to wrap your head around. I mean, even then you're seeing me struggle with it, and I've done this for quite a while. So we'll go ahead and mark that as submitted. And then our last question here for task 11. If you had SSH access to a server 10.10.10.5 with a web server running internally on port 80, so to further clarify, just running on the local host, how would you forward it to port 8000 on your attacking machine? Assume the username is user and background the shell. So what we want to do is SSH-L. Let's see. We are getting access to it on our local machine, which is port 8000. And then we want it just on our local host. So this is being run from our attacking machine. And we're getting access to port 80. User at 10.10.10.5. And then we do our normal background no commands. And there we go. That's going to do it for task 11. I will see you guys in the next video on task 12. But until then, happy hacking.